Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Andrew Scav. He is Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. On today's show, we'll preview Week 9 in the NFL. We'll talk about the World Series that is going very differently than what either of us expected, at least from our last episode. We'll talk about the Kansas City Chiefs victory over the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas over the last weekend. But we'll begin today's show just talking generally about the NFL in Week 8 action. A lot of crazy games, Mike, in this last week. Um, they're like just I sometimes like to ask just like sort of general like sports viewer philosophy questions for you. I don't know why. It's entertaining to me to see how other people, you know, what their take home was from the last week then. So like what did you take home from last week is like maybe like something that was important? Was it like good teams winning games, big upsets, or just this like crazy high scoring week that maybe the NFL is maybe pushing towards the higher scores? What do you think was what's your big takeaway from this last week watching all these games?
Yeah, well, I think overall, yeah, the games were pretty high scoring this past week. Um, we'll talk about our betting, but the over unders. I think 11 out of the 16 games every team ended up playing this weekend. This past weekend went over. 11 out of 16 went over, so only five unders. So I didn't do, of course, I didn't do very well in the over unders, and that's what sank my hopes for having a good week on the big board. But so a lot of games were high scoring, but maybe the weirdest game was one of the unders, a low scoring game, and that was the Chicago Washington game where there were two touchdowns scored at the end, but they were mostly field goals before that.
Yeah,
And was it 18 to 15? It only ended up being 33 points total. So there were some wild plays, wild endings that I think that Hail Mary that Jaden Daniels threw. Was maybe the most exciting and weirdest ending of a game, especially uh, given the fact that you saw the Bears, one of the Bears players, not even paying attention to the throw until maybe it was halfway in the air, and then hustling
right.
back and then getting back to the wrong place because I think he was supposed to be the guy who was standing behind uh, the mosh pit or whatever you want to call it,
Yes,
the scrum
the
area,
scrum. Yeah,
uh, where he was supposed to be taking the guarding the off man in who ended up catching the pass. So it was that was an interesting game. So there were a lot of like close games, a lot of
yeah.
one score games. I think a lot of games decided on last minute field goals. Uh, there were a couple of this big motorcycle going. I don't know if you can hear that going by
No,
me.
no, no.
It's really loud on my end. Um, but I think maybe maybe the second weirdest game was the biggest lopsided game, and that was the Detroit Tennessee blowout, which it wasn't a high-powered offensive attack by Tennessee, but it was just terrible defense and special teams mainly by
Yeah,
high scoring offense by Detroit, but it was
right.
terrible defense and special teams by Tennessee that was the culprit. I think Jared Goff threw for like 80 yards or something like that in the game, and it was
But three touchdowns.
touchdowns, yeah. But
Yeah,
they had
well,
like
it's
good field
kind of
position on every drive. They started like at Tennessee's 30-yard line, so it was
inside the 30. I think they had three or four touchdowns that were, yeah, from inside the 30 yard.
yeah,
Well, and a kick return, and like, was there an interception return for a touchdown
probably
too?
I think so.
Yeah,
There was one really long touchdown run that Jameer Gibbs had, but
right.
that was like
And
the only option.
that was their longest drive by far. Like that was, and it
Yeah.
wasn't really a drive; it was just a single play.
Yeah. So yeah, like you had said, this is one of the things I thought Tennessee might actually be a decent team this year, the way but you thought, and turns out correctly, it seems like that Tennessee maybe is one of the worst teams in the league this year. What made you think Tennessee was going to be really bad going into the year? What was it that tipped you off?
Well, I think it just seemed like they were really changing their identity as a whole, though. Like their, coaching staff is different. Their, running game, they're sort of trying to go to like a more of an offense, like a more of a passing offense from having had, Derrick Henry for years, and like a purely rushing game is like what it was,
Hmm.
based around. And it's, just shifting from that to something else is different. Just that I think those transition times usually take longer than you would hope as a franchise, at least anyway. So seeing them struggle, I don't think is terribly surprising. Maybe it'll be a few years or something, but they could be right back.
Yeah, I was
Who
surprised.
knows?
I thought they got a lot of veterans, and I thought maybe the veterans would shore them up for the short term, not necessarily make them good long term, but maybe
Yeah,
have maybe have them in the short term become like a playoff-ish contender because they weren't that far off the last few years. But
yeah,
because their offense wasn't that great even with Henry, they didn't score very many points. So
right.
what does it really matter if they don't score very many points passing or they don't score very many points rushing? It's the same lack of kind of mediocre offense, and then the defense was what carried them, and then they you got people like L'Jarius Sneed in, and I thought okay, well maybe they got some other defensive guys in. I thought okay, maybe they'll have a good defense, but yeah, it's turned out to be a disaster in
Yeah,
Tennessee. Will Levis has not progressed in the way that they thought he would. Um,
he had one really impressive game last year, right? And
Yeah,
then
he was actually doing okay last year.
yeah,
And then he goes hurt, and then Tannehill kind of came back. Um, but yeah, then, I guess also the Tennessee's been trading away some of their better players like DeAndre Hopkins and people like that, but to the Chiefs, of course.
right.
Uh, and so, speaking of DeAndre Hopkins, he got a couple of catches in the Chiefs game. Two catches for 29 yards, I think. An early couple of early catches. He didn't do much in the second half, but
Yeah.
was that surprising to you? Did you expect more from him, less from him, or was that kind of what you expected out of DeAndre
It's
Hopkins' first game?
somewhere in the area of what I would have expected. I thought maybe they would use him mostly as a decoy, probably. And possibly that may have helped Kelsey free up just a bit if maybe they had to stretch just a little bit more towards protecting against Hopkins beating them on a long play and like give up a little bit of space underneath to Kelsey. I know that one touchdown catch that Kelsey had was a play that the announcers had talked about. They actually pointed out on the field where Hopkins was, thinking that the ball was going to go to him from like getting everyone ready up for TV to watch the
Yeah,
play go that way. And then it went right down the middle to Kelsey, which was, great to see because, that was their first touchdown connection on the season. So that
yeah.
was kind of an important thing to happen. So
This was
if
Kelsey's best
Hopkins,
game.
was a bit of a decoy, that's fine, right?
I
So,
think, yeah, mainly because I think Hopkins and Kelsey kind of take the same spots on the field because Hopkins is not quite the deep threat he used to be, but he takes some of those underneath routes and like he can spread so he can spread the defenders wide probably
mhm.
in the short routes, and then you have Worthy take the top off the defense theoretically. Um, I think it'll be interesting once Juju Smith-Schuster comes back. And so the Chiefs will have a lot, even more options, kind
Yeah.
of low, and then maybe that could also free up Hopkins to take it a little, maybe go a little deeper, because it seems like he's maybe the one Chief who would be able to like make like catches on like 50-50 type balls that you would expect him to come down with. Like if they threw up a ball and Worthy's the guy, you would think Worthy's going to get muscled out probably most of the time, and that's what has happened a few times. He gets
Hmm.
a little guy, so he gets muscled out. But Hopkins has like the big catch radius, and he's runs the really precise routes, and
And he'll
he's
go up and
yeah, he can go really up and get
get a
he's
ball
tall.
too. Yeah.
Um, he's kind of like maybe what Rashee Rice's ceiling would be. I think at least maybe the Hopkins of a couple of years ago would be what Rashee Rice's ceiling would be. I think
Yeah.
Rashee now was before his injury at least was on his way to being one of the top receivers in the league. But like so, but yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is at least in the Hall of Fame conversation if he's not a Hall of Fame player necessarily. I think he's up there.
Yeah,
So, this is having a player like that from Mahomes. He hasn't, well, he had Tyreek Hill, but he's a different type of player from Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's kind of a unique, I think, a unique talent. Uh,
yeah,
I don't think Mahomes has had like a, you know, top end like prototype wide receiver before.
traditional whiteout. Yeah,
Yeah, like like a Devontae Adams type, or um, AJ Green, or somebody uh somebody like that type of,
yeah,
old kind of the, Andre Johnson, kind of the Megatron type of big wide receiver, that Larry Fitzgerald type that could
right.
muscle people out and like catch the fade, the fades in the end zone, the toe taps, that sort of wide receiver that was very popular in the league maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago now, but it's maybe a little less common now with maybe you have littler. I think maybe we've gone to littler receivers again. Um,
Yeah, I think there has been like seemed like more priority like on just pure speed and like more like the gadget plays out of like the slot stuff like that seems to be maybe the trend for the league at this point.
yeah, I think maybe in Philadelphia you still have like AJ Brown,
Browns, yeah,
who's like that kind of old school big guy receiver, um, who but yeah, I think you are right. Like there's like the shiftier guys, or maybe it's a lot of like the slot receiver Cooper Cup types of guys that are uh
yeah,
making it bit we're getting big.
yeah. What used to be like the gadget play kind of players that are now less gadgety, more integral parts of the game, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, the Debo Samuel types, or the right,
Yeah,
that can
yeah.
play more than one
Hmm.
place on the field anyway. I guess
Yeah,
not
yeah. I
defensively
Brandon
well.
Ayuk, the same team. It was is more of the traditional, bigger wide receiver. CeeDee
Yeah,
Lamb. I guess you still have some. I guess you still have a lot of those, but
yeah.
it's maybe there's a little more
It's just not
variety.
purely that type of player, I guess. Now it's more of a mix, I think. But it seems like
Yeah.
there's maybe as much focus on you know the other, one or the other, but not necessarily both on the same teams anyway. Yeah, San Francisco is one of those rare teams that has like both,
Yeah.
yeah, traditional and the, I don't know, I guess more gadgety type player on the
Yeah,
same
but
team.
Miami, you would say, yeah, Tyreek Hill's more of the gadgety, and Jalen
Yeah,
Waddle too, probably. There's kind of smaller. But I guess they did pick up Odell Beckham in the offseason. He's the uh
more of the
more
traditional
traditional.
types. Yeah.
Uh, but he hasn't been much in the last, few years. He's been
Yeah.
injured and he's getting
I
older.
haven't even heard about him this year.
I
Is
guess
he performing well? I don't even really pay attention to Miami's sort of fallen off with Tua's injury early. I haven't really been even checking in on him that much.
yeah.
Have you followed him at all? Have they
No,
been on your
I just
like games
Googled
of the
him,
week even?
and it says supposedly he is a little bit angry because he hasn't been used very much this season. So
I don't
um,
even see him in the catch list. Has he not
no,
been?
he's only played three. Actually, he's only played 3 games this year, and he has 0 catches for 0 yards.
I don't see him with any targets even.
He had
Yeah,
he
that's
didn't have any targets last week, but he had 2 targets against Indianapolis, 1 target against New England. So,
okay.
but
Well, maybe this isn't to have. If you didn't have a catch, then you don't show up on this apparently on this list
no,
at least. Yeah, this is quite a difference in seasons where yeah, Tyreek Hill only has 366 yards through 7 games, where last year he would have been, you know, I think he was averaging 100 yards a game, I think, at this point last
yes,
season.
yeah, he was threatening to break the record for yardage. Um, and yeah, Tyreek Hill last year. um, had how many yards total? 1799, so over 100 yards a game. He only played 16 games.
Yeah, that
Uh,
tailed off towards the end. It wasn't.
yeah, yeah, he only has 366 yards, so he's not even on pace for 1,000 yards this year. But I could probably you think with Tua there, he has 9 games to get 634 yards. You would think probably he'd be able to get that
Yeah, I don't. I
if
wouldn't
Tua
worry
stays.
about
That's
it.
if Tua stays healthy the whole. Uh,
And he'll stay healthy.
and Hill, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For the most part, Hill has been pretty durable.
Mhm.
He gets injured sometimes, but usually plays through the injuries.
Yeah.
But
So Miami hasn't been playing terribly well this season. So they've kind of dropped off of our radars a bit. But in the same division, though, what about the Jets? Do we no longer have to talk about the Jets? Like they're 2-6 now? Are we fine with being able to write them off on the season now, or do you think they still
well,
have a comeback in them?
I don't think they have come back in them. But I think we have to talk about them because they're playing the early game this week. So they're playing the Thursday night game. So they're on national television against Houston. And if they somehow beat Houston, they're factually favored against Houston for some reason. Um, but maybe that's because Houston hasn't been playing all that well lately. But still, they've at least been in winning some of those games, whereas the Jets have just, I think they've lost 5 in a row, maybe.
Five straight, yeah.
Yeah. 3 in a row since they fired their coach. Um, and their defense has fallen apart and their offense isn't doing so well. And they lost to New England last week. Um, yeah, I think we don't need to talk about the Jets until maybe if they're make it back up to like 5-6, you know, if they win a couple of games in a row, maybe they'll, be in that playoff hunt because, I think right now some of the teams that are in the playoff hunt, maybe you might think of like Denver and the Chargers maybe uh aren't going to be there the whole season, I don't think. I don't think those two are playoff teams probably.
Wouldn't
Uh,
think so.
but and Cincinnati has been off, but maybe they didn't have they played. What do you think of this? Maybe talk about Cincinnati. What do you think of Cincinnati and getting blown out by Philadelphia? Is that the you talk about the Jets being written off? Is that Cincinnati? Should we write Cincinnati off?
They're getting close to that. I think they've had a few seasons in a row actually they've started pretty slowly, but then managed to like come on late. Maybe they're like just falling into this kind of pattern that they've had in the last few years of that. Maybe they're on their way to figuring something out and picking it up, but they're waiting a little bit too long, probably at this point, if that's their plan anyway.
Well, you could
It's
say,
not looking so great, especially against like Philly, who has not been playing well either, and they were maybe a game or two of being starting to think about writing them off too.
yeah,
So I mean I was pretty surprised at the outcome of that, at least anyway, that it was that decisive and in Philly's favor.
yeah. Philadelphia, it seems like has been on the verge of imploding for a while, but they've
Yeah,
been actually been winning the last several games, so maybe they aren't. They're maybe it's in a way they're like the kind of um like the Chiefs in some ways, like winning close games, winning games even though you think they're not doing so well, but with kind of inner turmoil, like they're kind of a combination of the Chiefs and Jets, I think, but they've been
yeah,
winning, so it doesn't really matter that they're in
yeah.
disarray. I think in terms of the team being upset with each other and the coaching staff and things like that.
The fan, like the coaches interacting with the fans
Yeah,
negatively
yeah,
too. I mean,
Sirianni is a
that's
mess, I think, and
yeah,
but they've been winning. It looks like Dallas is even in is in worse shape, and I don't know if Washington can sustain their success through the entire year. So maybe you could say Philadelphia still has an inside track to a playoff spot, maybe even the division. Um, but back with talking about Cincinnati, well, we didn't expect Baltimore to lose to Cleveland, that's for sure.
That
And
was a surprise.
we also probably didn't think that Pittsburgh would be as good as they are, seemingly, with Russell Wilson as quarterback. So like, it's the AFC North has been a little bit straight. We thought maybe I thought maybe that Pittsburgh would have a winning record simply
I
because.
I picked them to have a losing record this season, so I'm looking to be way off on that prediction. Right about Tennessee, very wrong about Pittsburgh. So.
I picked Pitts. What did I pick? I'm going looking at my picks right now. I picked Pittsburgh to win.
And you had them on the over, I'm pretty sure, for the season win
Yeah,
totals.
over. I had them, I think, winning 11 games, didn't I, this year?
So already, looking pretty good right now for that.
Or did I 2023 win total? Wait, 2024 over under predicted Andrew. No, I had them winning. No, I actually had them winning 9 games, 9-8.
Ah,
I was I had Baltimore winning 11 games, winning that division, which is still possible. But I had
uh,
Cleveland. I did have Cleveland only winning 6, and you did too. So we both predicted Cleveland to be way under. They had an over under of 9.5 going into the season, which was really surprising, I thought.
yeah, I think I had Tennessee at only 5 wins on the season, and that's possible, I think.
Yeah, they might get up to 5 wins. I had New England at only 4. You had New England only 4. We had You had Carolina at only 4. I was more optimistic about Carolina. I had them at 6. I thought they would be better. Um, but
Yeah, I had them at 4. That may be high, right?
yeah.
But their over under was 5.5, so that's
Hmm.
looking pretty good for the under right now.
Right now it is for sure.
We look to be way off on Washington though. I've already lost Washington.
I had Washington at 7, and they're 6. I think they're 6-2 right now.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I only had them at 5 wins.
they
Oh,
only
but
need
their
they only
over
need
under was 6.5. So
they only need one more win to go to the over. So that will be our first over our first our first outcome for the over unders. I think will
it's
be
pretty funny.
Washington. Um,
But yeah, it's very surprising that they've done this well this early.
Yeah. Well, Jaden Daniels has been much better, and I think the Cliff Kingsbury led offense has been good, and the defense hasn't been too bad either in Washington. So, yeah, they've been a surprise. They've been maybe the most surprising team,
Yeah,
like at least maybe pleasantly surprising team at least. Maybe there's been some surprising teams that are just so bad. Like you might say Dallas is surprising how bad they've been, or um,
yes, yeah. So whose fan bases do you think should be more
the
excited
Jets are
about their
surprising. Yeah.
futures? Then do you think the like Pittsburgh or Washington's fans should be more excited about their futures?
I think I think Pittsburgh's a better team than Washington, but I think Pittsburgh is also stuck in the AFC, whereas Washington, it seems like the only good team. Maybe maybe there are a couple of good teams in the NFC, but really the only good team is Detroit right now. There
Yeah,
are maybe Green Bay, but Green Bay's got quarterback issues with Jordan Love being injured. I think Minnesota is not as good as their record indicates because I don't think Sam Darnold really is the answer. Um, None of the other divisions are really, the Falcons are okay. I think the 49ers will turn things around eventually, but right now they aren't that great.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Because I
um,
think everybody's 500 or below in the
yeah,
NFC West.
Philadelphia is again, we talked about them. They're Philadelphia. Their record is decent, but it seems like they're ready to implode at any minute. So
Yeah,
I think Washington, and the Bears are okay. But the Washington beat the Bears, so it's hard to, I
Yeah,
think it's
on
hard
a
to,
Hail Mary though, so it's like
yeah,
it wasn't like a decisive
the
victory, but it's still a
Buccaneers,
win is a win. But
the Buccaneers looked good for a while, but without Godwin and without Evans, I think that's not good for them. I think they really need all their guys to be healthy.
yeah,
They're not quite like the Chiefs with Mahomes, who can kind of elevate mediocre talent and get by. So, so I would say if Washington and Pittsburgh both played each other, I would pick Pittsburgh to win. But
yeah,
but the way, even though the Ravens lost, I think they're better than just about any. I'd say maybe not better than Detroit, but they're better than any NFC team probably. I think Buffalo is probably better than any NFC team other than Detroit. Maybe you could say Houston the same right now. And the Chiefs, of course. So I think we had talked about going in. We thought the AFC was the better conference this year, and it has been for the last couple of years. And I think that's still the case. And yeah, Pittsburgh still has to deal with the AFC North.
yeah.
Um,
So you're saying Washington probably is more their fan bases are probably have an easier chance for being happy as the season goes on.
I think so. I think Pittsburgh fans will be happy, but I don't think Pittsburgh will have a chance to. I can see Washington even making like they could make the NFC Championship game. I don't think
Yeah.
that's. I would
Well, I
be
mean,
more
you just make the
surprised.
playoffs. That's your first
Yeah,
hurdle, right? And
I would be
they're in
more.
great shape for that right now. The division's not playing that well, so they've got a good track.
Yeah, Pittsburgh I think is in good shape to make the playoffs, but I would be surprised if they won more than one game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Washington won more than one game in the NFC playoffs right
But their
now.
defense seems to be decent too. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's I mean that certainly helps.
I think
You know,
that's
your chances of winning actual playoff games having to have at least some passable form of defense, and it seems like they have something. And well, how about on the other side of this coin? Which fan base do you think is more concerned, one AFC, one NFC team, about Cincinnati and Dallas?
ooh. I think Dallas is more concerned. I think like you mentioned kind of Cincinnati sometimes starts out slow and they come back. Um, but I also think that Dallas's expectations, I think at this point were very, very high. And
As they always are.
yeah,
Maybe
Cincinnati
the
fans
most
the disappointment. Even though Dallas fans probably should be used to disappointment by now, I don't think they are. I think
yeah,
they're upset every time, and in some ways, I think that makes people like us delighted. But they expect to be, you know, talked, up as if they were one of the Super Bowl contenders every year,
yeah.
and like if Dallas's season continues the way it is, Mike McCarthy's going to lose his job. I don't think Zach Taylor is going to lose his job in Cincinnati if they have a season that's subpar.
You would
So
think so.
because he's had a lot of success, and um, so I think Cincinnati is in a more stable position right now. It might be kind of a soft rebuild with T. Higgins going, and maybe you trade Jamar Chase for draft picks and try to do something, but
Right.
I'm not sure. Maybe you build around Chase uh, and just trade Higgins or something, but they can't afford to keep both of them, and that's
And that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, the team, if they're very young, when they all start to have success, then yeah, as they start to reach those contract years, it becomes very expensive to try to keep all of them together. And figuring out how to keep enough of the players together and happy and paid is it's quite a challenge, isn't it, for
yeah.
franchises?
Dallas paid CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, but they also have to pay now their defensive players, Michael Parsons and all the other guys, and their defense hasn't been very good this year. I think Dallas is, I think Dallas is kind of up there with the Jets, probably, fan bases as probably maybe the most irate of all.
Yeah. the Jets fan base probably shouldn't have been that excited,
No, no.
right?
I think the Jets. I don't know if the Jets and the Giants played each other, who would win that game, do you think?
Right now, maybe even the Giants. Like the Jets have been losing everything recently. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, five in a row. So if you're going to meet them, now's the time to meet them. I think, right? But the Giants seem to be running some of the games like fairly closely, but then they end up losing
hmm
all of them seemingly too, right? So yeah, what are the Giants now in the season? Are they two and yeah, they're 2-6.
2-6. They've been
Identical
in some
records with the
games, but they've
Jets.
been blown out of some games too. But
And
yeah, the Jets have lost five in a row. Well, maybe we can segue this into our bets for this week. The one game that I got correct in my locks of the week, I was 1-2 this week. I had been 8-1 in my past over the past 3 weeks, but this week I was 1-2, going back under 500. My one win was uh, picking New England +7 at home over the Jets. I didn't think the Jets should be favored by 7 against anybody, and that turned out to be correct because the Jets actually lost to New England 25 to 22, with Jacoby Brissett actually playing most of the day in quarterback when Drake May went out in the first half with a possible concussion. So um, that was my lone lock of the week that turned out to be a lock that actually locked. So
yes,
the other ones
not
were
mis
my
not
other
wasn't
lock.
misaligned or
Yeah,
corroded or something, right?
eroded.
Yes.
Yeah, I left the key in it. No, I
The key's been broken off inside the lock, and now it just
yeah,
doesn't work
yeah,
anymore. Oh,
yeah. Well, would that be the lock that just stays locked? I don't know.
yeah,
So do you want a lock that just stays locked that you can't unlock, or do you want a lock to be working properly,
fully
that
functioning.
only the owner of the lock can open it? Is that
I
I don't
actually
know what
don't
maybe
know what the preferred one here is. Yeah, do we want it to be? I think maybe you want it to stay
is it a
locked,
lock where you
right?
lock it up and throw away the key? Is that the best kind of lock, or is it the lock that works to the designer's specifications and is is opened easily by the one correct person, but not able to be opened by unauthorized users?
I think the metaphor that we should be aiming for is that, we go ahead and, lock this lock and then you throw away the key and it stays locked and so it's secure, right? Isn't that
So we
what we
want
should
we
be
we
aiming
so
for?
we don't want to be able to open it at all, even if we forget something and need to go back
I,
inside.
well, yeah, I think we're just trying to say that they're like basically guarantees, right? So they can't be picked, they can't be opened, right? Like they're sure things, right?
Impenetrable,
Yeah, I think that's what we should be aiming
unpickable.
for, but we have not been any of that this season so
But I
far.
would want a
So,
lock. But as a person, you would want a lock that you could open because there's
yes.
stuff in there, and you want to be able to get it out. Unless you're locking up some sort of crazed maniac that is going to wreak havoc, that is not able to be rehabilitated in any way, and you're locking away a demon or something like that from the fires of hell that is somehow forced its way into the earthly dimension, earthly realm. That sort of uh, 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo kind of. Uh,
Is that not what you've been doing this whole season with these locks of the week? Is that you've been doing something else?
yeah, no, I. I've been so maybe that's what we're trying to do. So, but yeah, anyway, the lock that
Maybe.
worked the best was my Jets, my anti-Jets pick, my New England +7 at home, and they won outright. So I guess I was correct on that one. You actually went 2-1 on the week. What was your first victory? What was your first of two locks that
That we're actually correct.
uh, successful?
Uh, the one we've already sort of talked about, the first one, I guess. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that one first. Anyway, was the Detroit. even though it was a very big spread, a minus 10.5 against Tennessee in Detroit. And that was what, 52-14 was the final.
Yeah.
Very comfortably covering that 10.5 point spread, which seemed large, but after the second quarter was not anywhere close to large. It was already well covered at that point. So uh, yeah, that was my first victory of the week and most functional lock, or the lock that threw away the demons that has kept them secured. Yes.
Well, I was unable to either operate my lock or the lock was just flimsy and open to any passerby. My next two picks. I guess we'll talk. Maybe I'll talk about my biggest miss, and then I'll talk about my near miss. My biggest miss
Yes.
was picking Baltimore minus 9.5 at Cleveland. Baltimore not only did not cover, they did not win at Cleveland. They lost 29 to 24. Although they threatened to win at the end with a potential Hail Mary that didn't really work out, but they still wouldn't have covered. So this was a kind of, big, I guess it was a divisional game. Maybe I should have taken that into account. Maybe I should have also taken into account the magic that is Jameis Winston plus a new offensive coordinator. Uh, I believe it was Ken Dorsey, the cast-off Bills offensive coordinator from last couple of years,
There
who
was.
now calling the plays instead of Kevin Stefanski. And it's not like, and so it seemed like it opened up the Browns offense, although they also had kind of Nick Chubb back still. He's on the
Yeah.
mend. So I think they just had better players than I guess they didn't I guess they have gotten rid of Amari Cooper, their best wide receiver, but they still have some talent on offense there. And I think Jameis Winston is better right now than Deshaun Watson was even before his injury. So maybe I
Yeah.
should have factored that in, but I still thought Baltimore was going to run over him and win big, but they didn't. So
I don't know how anybody could have predicted that at all. Like that seemed like a sure thing, like going into that week.
I
That
thought it was,
was
yeah. That's why I put
yeah.
it as my lock of the week, but it turned out to be
Yeah.
just,
I
you
was I
know,
was fully with you too there, and I did not see that coming at all.
it was like,
Cleveland's been really bad. It's usually seems to be like the easier thing to do is to pick against bad teams than it is to even like bet on good ones a lot of times. And
yeah,
Cleveland had played like a bad team like most of the season. And a random game where they looked semi-competent, I guess. But yeah, Deshaun Watson hadn't played very well. And it just didn't really make sense. But yeah, there were so many changes from last week to this week, I guess. We don't know which one it was that had
yeah, we
had the
don't.
effect.
Or maybe it was just Baltimore looking past them. But this was an illusion of of a lock. It reminds me of my cousin Vinny. You remember when Vinny was explaining how the prosecutor would stack his evidence and make it look as if he had a impenetrable kind of brick wall of evidence showing each brick being laid upon the other. But he said, but he was using playing cards. He said the bricks look like from this angle that they are impenetrable and sturdy and sound, but if you flip it in the right angle, they're as thin as the playing card that he was using. So I think it was a what looked like a brick wall, but it was actually a brick wall only made from playing cards. Was this lock metaphor? So maybe it was a paper thin uh, lock, uh,
A facade.
a facade.
It's all a facade. Yeah. And the game wasn't even really like, we've talked about Baltimore in the past where it's like if they get behind early, they have a more difficult time coming back
Yeah.
because they have to abandon the run game to a more passing offense, traditional passing offense. And they just don't really have that. But the game doesn't really look like that's what it
No,
was. Like,
it was a close game the whole way through, and they just couldn't
yeah,
do anything. Somehow Cleveland has a good defense, but I don't think Cleveland's. I don't. I still don't think a good defense is that. I don't think their defense is that amazing. Miles Garrett's a great player, but um,
yeah. I mean, Baltimore had the lead even with like inside 3 minutes to go, and they
Yeah,
weren't able to hold on to the lead, and then still had a chance to come back, but weren't successful. But yeah, but that's not even close to what we expected them to show, which was a lot of running and a lot of Derrick Henry and a lot of
mm,
right, just
yeah,
piled up yards and running up the score is what we kind of expected. And yeah, Derrick Henry carried the ball 11 times, which is not really what you would have guessed as a game plan. So it's very surprising to see that outcome, let alone how they got to that outcome, right?
yeah. How about your second lock of the week that turned out to be a secure, uh, sturdy lock?
The second game that I got correct was I believe what was the Monday night game, wasn't it? The
The
Pittsburgh
Steelers,
New York
Giants.
Giants.
Yeah.
Uh, Pittsburgh was favored by 5.5 points. That was my pick at home. Pittsburgh did end up winning 26-18. It did get a little hairy close to the end where the Giants looked like they had a chance to come back, um, kind of even closer, but Pittsburgh managed to hold on and hold off that line. I guess if they gave up
Yeah.
a field goal late, that would have been enough to bust the bet at least anyway. But
Yeah.
Pittsburgh managed to hold on and cover the spread there.
Yeah, that was an interesting game. There were a lot of there were a lot of touchdowns that were called back via penalty or by the rule or review. Um, one of them was the one a George Pickens catch in the end zone. I think Pickens had like two touchdowns overturned by
Oof.
the booth or that were put on the board and then taken away. One was penalty at least, I think. But he George Pickens he caught the ball and he hopped twice on his right foot, but did not get his left foot in bounds, and therefore the touchdown was ruled no touchdown. Do you think that should have been ruled a touchdown? Do you think having two of one foot in bounds should be uh, a catch? If you can have two, if both feet in bounds are a catch, why not one foot twice? What is the
Yeah, I mean, because there are a lot of like ways to get to a catch, and some of them don't involve 2 feet down, but 1 foot twice seems to be that should be fine. I actually didn't see the play. Was it? Did he just like tap twice, like real quick, or
No,
was
he
it like did
had
he like step on something, or
he
did
was
he?
in the end zone and he landed on one foot and then he was pushed and then
Yeah,
fell backwards. He got the same foot in
same
bounds.
foot came back down.
Yeah. And then was
But so I
out.
mean, he actually like stepped down twice then,
Yes, he stepped
essentially.
down twice. His entire
I don't
foot.
I don't see why that's not essentially like a
It should
catch.
have
I
been.
don't I don't quite get that.
Because he didn't get his if he had done it and just gotten his left foot down after his right foot, it would have counted. So I don't know why. I just don't
Yeah.
see why the both feet matters if you get one down
Yeah.
twice.
Like you can say like, well, if he like is gliding across the top of the grass, say, and he like his toe touches and then it like touches again, would that be enough to count too? Then it's like
Yeah.
maybe that's more of like that's like the same event, where like you haven't
Yeah,
actually
this was
touched the
like
ground, like sort of
he
thing. But
he
like this is
caught
like
it.
it
He caught it.
touched,
He had one foot down. Then he got
left
pushed
the
back,
ground.
and then as he was falling down, he got his foot back on, and then
Yeah.
but this other foot never touched, and it was kind of a lame
Yeah.
excuse for not counting. But
Yeah, that
um,
is kind of silly, especially because like if you get one knee down, that counts as 2 feet, or hip, or an elbow, or a shoulder, that counts as
yeah.
2 feet, where you don't actually have to have two appendages down. But like if
Mhm.
your hand touches the ground, that doesn't count. You're still considered up if a hand touches. But would it count as a foot if your hand touched the ground? If you had like a left foot and a right hand down, would that count as a catch then?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. Um, so I don't think what if you caught it with your feet and you were on your hands? Would
Zero feet.
that would be zero.
We need more acrobatic catches like this.
Yeah. like
like
what,
Cirque
but
du
a
Soleil football.
one-legged player would never be able to score a touchdown, at least unless they fell down. They couldn't just hop around.
Yes.
It would never
Well,
be
so
considered
so now you're wanting to see the scenario where a guy catches the ball on the sideline on one foot, hops on one foot all the way to the end zone,
yes, and then see
and
them wipe it off and say
yes,
no catch, um, which I don't
there
think
are,
should.
there are a lot of rules that really don't quite make sense in the NFL playbook.
I could see that rule getting changed in the off season because that seems like it should have been a catch. I think it was just I think it's arbitrary which two. Like you don't have to get your left foot down, then your right foot down, or your right foot. It counts either way. So I think it should count. Either foot counts as a foot.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if it's two events, you would think, right? It's
yeah.
not like a skip or something like that. Like if the same foot touches twice, that should be two feet or
Hmm.
two steps, right? So it's
Yeah.
is it not
Well,
considered two steps if it's with a different foot, with the same foot?
I guess not. I don't know. It's skipping a step. Well, but you did get this. You got the lock right. The Pittsburgh was favored by 5.5 on the eight. I actually had
Yeah,
another 5.5 point favorite. Houston at home against Indianapolis. Houston, however, did not cover against Indianapolis. Houston won the game 23-20, but they didn't play very well. Indianapolis wasn't very good. Anthony Richardson was like 10 for 32 passing, so which is, you know,
nice.
30% ish, and that's, not very good. And he actually came out of the game because he was tired. But like you mentioned before we went on the air, he ran off the field and ran back on the field. And
Yeah,
there was a handoff in between, which seems strange. Like why why not just you know, not run a lot on the play that you want to stay in on. Just maybe
yeah.
he needed
Well,
hydration. Maybe
we have to
he,
wonder then too, like maybe there's just a disconnect between the coaching staff and him, even where they're, not making the play calling enough that he has, enough time to have a chance to recover. Like call just some traditional runs just so he can catch his breath
yeah,
occasionally. That seems like, the coaching staff should be able to handle that and without him having to ask to come out
yeah.
to catch his breath. That's very strange. You don't really see that in the
Um,
NFL very much,
well,
if at
the
all.
coaching
Like I
staff,
can't remember the last time I've seen that.
I guess the coaching staff will give him a large break this week because he is not starting.
Yeah.
Instead, Joe Flacco has been named the starting quarterback for this week. So
Or do you question Richardson's conditioning then too? Like maybe he's not really in shape for the season. Is that I mean
I
that's gonna
don't
be
know
another
about
thing that
that.
people
He's
are gonna be
probably
talking about.
Yeah. I think he was just running a lot probably and wasn't. I don't know. Maybe Yeah, maybe there was something weird about it, but again,
Yeah.
running backs, receivers, they can be, they're asked to be let out after, plays and stuff like that all the time. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just the mentality that Richardson had. It was just one play. Um, I don't know.
It's very strange to see a quarterback come out of a game on his own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Still, Houston didn't cover, so I
yeah.
was uh one
Even
and a half,
yeah, even with that,
2.5
Houston
points
wasn't
down.
able to cover. That's a bit surprising. Is it
Yeah, it
not?
was at home. I thought Houston would have it,
Yeah.
but they didn't. So maybe that's why the New York Jets are actually favored by 1.5 points on Thursday night going forward. Maybe that's a preview of one of our bets going forward in the next week. But what was your lone loss of the week? Your anti-lock.
My lone loss was I had Green Bay minus 4.5 at Jacksonville. Jacksonville has been playing well. It was another bet against a team as much as it was a bet on a team, I think. But similar situation for you with Houston is Green Bay did manage to win the game, but they weren't able to cover the 4.5, but they won by late field goal. After Jordan Love had come out with an injury, not he wasn't asked out, I guess, but
Hmm.
he was asked to come out of the game, but he did leave the game early, I guess, with a groin injury, what it sounded like.
Yeah, some sort of
Uh,
groin
he played
strain.
he played more of the game, but then it came out, I think, for good, I think, in the third quarter. So that maybe hampered them a bit. But their backup quarterback, Malik Willis, ended up leading the game-winning drive to get to the field goal to win it. But it would have been nicer for the betting people if they would have got the touchdown instead, right?
Yes. So
But no,
we've so our locks of the week now. I think I was 1-2. You were 2-1. So you were ahead by one going into this week. I believe you were 11-10. I was 10-11 on our locks.
yes,
I'm now 11-13, whereas you are 13-11. So you're up by two in our locks of the week. Neither of us did terribly well on the big board. Both of us lost money. I think I lost somewhere near um, $700. You lost a little over $500. So neither of us did very well. As I mentioned, the unders only hit 5 out of 11, and I went all under. So that's where I lost $650. So I was about even otherwise until those over unders. And then the over unders kind of helped you. You actually won $125 on the over unders. So that brought you back closer to even. So um, we're
I had a mix of over unders. Maybe I should have just gone straight overs then, just to would have
yeah,
done even better.
you would have.
Missed opportunity.
You are just over even through 8 weeks,
Hmm.
$140 positive. I am now down. I was getting closer to even, but now I am almost $1,500 down. So we'll see what happens of next week. Maybe I will continue my unders. I think the unders can't stay uh, down for long, but maybe if this week goes poorly, maybe I will start looking at them individually now. But I did like the relief of decision making that picking all unders gave me. But if I'm gonna lose a lot,
Yes.
I want to rethink that.
And just as a maybe a bit of a preview, the average over under number is even higher this week than it was last week, Mike. So maybe your all unders bet should still be on.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it one
Vegas
more
is
week.
moving this long, it's even higher.
Yeah,
Or not. Maybe it's not a good
I
idea.
think I'm gonna do one more week of unders, but we'll see. Um, maybe we could before we talk about next week though, do we want to talk about the World Series where it turns out the game has just ended in game four and the Yankees won. We both thought the Yankees were going to do very well this World Series. However, that was their first win of the four games. Is Dodgers 3 games to Yankees 1 game after game four. What do you think's going on with the Yankees? What's going on with the Dodgers? Why are they winning? And why were our picks so awful? I picked the Yankees in 6 games. You picked the Yankees in 5 games. At best, if the Yankees win 3 in a row, they could win in seven, but that's pretty unlikely. It's never happened in the World Series. Um,
Right.
it has happened in one ALCS against the Yankees, where
Right.
2004, right? That was the Red
Red
Sox were down
Sox.
3-0. They won 4-3. But yeah, I guess that could happen. You never know. It's only 3 games.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's going on in the World Series?
Well, yeah, so far I think for the Dodgers, the big story has been Freddie Freeman, who's homered in each of the 4 games, Freddie, which is incredibly impressive, especially
Did he
since
hit a
he'd
home run
been
tonight?
injured. He did early, yes, yeah. So
Oh, he
he has
did.
homered. He has exactly one home run in each of the games. First game was the walk-off grand slam, which I think is every kid's dream. That's like the ultimate pinnacle of all of baseball is the walk-off grand slam in a World Series game. That was that. I thought it was pretty, impressive to see. Um, so yeah, so I think really the story's been for the Dodgers been Freddie Freeman. For the Yankees, it's been just nothing happening really on offense. They hadn't been able to do anything until now today, though, where they had two grand slams. Gleyber Torres ended up hitting a grand slam late after Volpe hit a grand slam earlier in the game. So if you can get a game where you get multiple grand slams, you're gonna have a really good chance of winning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably maybe one of the almost guarantees of victory if your team hits multiple grand slams in one game. I don't know how many teams have lost games. That would be an interesting statistic to see if any team has lost a game where they've hit multiple grand slams. I guess in a really high scoring game,
Yeah.
that could happen. Like some team loses, 15 to 11 or something like that. But
Typically, typically you wouldn't see that in a World Series game where it's like the best pitchers the league has to offer. It's generally pretty hard to get the situation to even hit a grand slam, let alone more than one in a single game, and be successful with it. So I'd be shocked if there are instances that happen, especially the kind of frequency.
mhm.
Are you looking it up right now?
I'm looking it up. I don't know if I'll find it.
Yeah, it's kind of a bizarre, very specific set of terms to search.
Okay, so it looks like we'd have to look at, there's a, um,
Maybe just looking up Grand World Series Grand Slams would be
I'm looking up most grand slams by one team in one game. Uh, three is the most. And it says
really.
every game. So I could look up every game and then I could see whether that game was won or lost, all the multiple grand slam games, but there's nothing that shows me. Um, I'm looking at most grand slams. Aha, I found it. I found it. Um, the Baltimore Orioles in 1986 on um, August 6th, 1986, lost a game 13-11 to the Texas Rangers where they hit two grand slams. August 6th, 1986. So it's happened one time.
But that's in a regular season game then too, right?
The regular season game. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any. There've been very few World series with more than one Grand Slam.
Hmm.
It looks like 1956 there were two Grand Slams. It was one in Game Two, one in Game Seven,
This is three. This might be the record then.
and 1987 Game One and Game Six there were Grand Slams, and that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So
So
I'm glad that
just two World Series have had
multiple grand slams.
multiple Grand Slams in the
This one's had
entire
three already.
series, though, not just in a game, but like in a
This one's had three
series.
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
so there's is it three? It is three for this one then, right? So two the Yankees I had the two tonight and then
Yeah.
uh Freeman in game one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
But so the Aaron Judge really hasn't done much in the World Series. And I think that's that slump that started sort of around the beginning of the playoffs and sort of continued for this, through the World Series now too. He hasn't really done too much. That's probably what's keeping the Yankees back so far. Do you think he's going to catch fire here in the last couple of games, or
he'll have to, I think, if the Yankees want to win. So I don't know. He's been kind of lackluster the entire playoffs. So
no?
um, yeah, it's been Giancarlo Stanton has been the heavy hitter, and Soto has had some good games. But yeah,
Mhm.
Judge has been mostly quiet. He was
I
pretty
think he did
quiet in
have
the
a
World
hit in
Series.
this last. He may have been on base actually for the grand. No, no, it was after the Grand Slam. But yeah, he isn't. I think he maybe got on that,
Mm.
but
Should
that doesn't really mean anything anyway.
should we revise our predictions? So what do you think? So now with the Dodgers up 3-1, what is your prediction? Do you think the Dodgers will win in? Do you think our we should mirror image our predictions? Now do you think Dodgers in five?
Yeah, so let's see. Who would be? What'll be the pitching matchup for the next game? Is that that should be back to the top of the lineup, right? So it's going to be Garrett Cole against Jack Flaherty. Flaherty got the upper hand the first time. You'd think Cole would be okay at home. Uh, I think it's going to go back to LA at this point.
Mm.
I Let's see. You picked first last time. Maybe I'll steal your pick then and say Dodgers in six now. Take your so that because you had Yankees in six originally. So
I've already missed my first pick, so I'm going to be bold and just do Yankees in seven. Say the Yankees will still
may as
win,
well. May as well.
and pull it off, and then that way I look pretty good. Uh, if I predicted the predicted the four game sweep by the Yankees. So well, I'm gonna still say Yankees in seven.
If we go deep into a game seven, do you think we'll see Shohei Ohtani throw an inning?
Ooh, that's interesting because game seven, yeah, because this is the last. Yeah, if it's yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Would you set, would you put Otani in as, for one inning at least and it goes to extra innings or something like that, or a high leverage situation? But he hasn't
Yeah,
pitched all year, so you'd have to at least have him
right.
warm up
Yeah,
some and see him. I don't know if he's even done that so far uh these playoff seasons, so I'm not sure. I don't think he's going
I
to
don't think
pitch.
so. I'd be really surprised to see him, but if it comes down to that's your best option, it's pretty dire because that's going to be very, very late in the game, right?
Yeah.
Probably extra inning, something like that is probably the only scenario that'll come up.
hmm I guess if they are out of pitchers,
Right.
they would have to.
But the Dodgers have been running bullpen games as it
Yeah.
is. So, and if you go to game seven and if your game seven ends up being a bullpen game, because they really only have two starters, and it's going to be Flaherty in game five. And then they'll be back to Yamamoto in game six. So game seven may just be another bullpen game. And so they very likely, could be in a scenario where they could torch their pen, especially if they go, if it, if it goes extras, then they may need something like that, some kind of wild card off the bench.
hmm
I still think it is amusing that they are fairly heavily reliant on former Royals arms that the Royals have given up on, like Tim Hill and that's the Yankees though. Um, Tim Hill and Luke Weaver, I guess, right for the Yankees. Do you find that a little surprising that
Yeah, I think
the
that's a little
Royals cast
surprising.
are still there? Yeah,
Yes, yes, these Royals, yeah, they aren't good enough to be on the Royals, but they're good enough to be on World Series teams. It's a little
okay,
odd. Like, and not like good Royals teams recently. It's been their bad Royals teams. Uh,
yeah,
so
from several years ago, yes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see how that turns out, how the series turns out. But do you think, I guess, will this see so I guess will the World Series be over before uh this weekend's football games? I
Oh
guess I
yeah,
don't
so
know because I think it'll go to 7 games in Los Angeles. So uh
well, I guess it'll be over before because it'll end on Saturday, I think, won't it? Wouldn't game seven be on Saturday? Because they'll
I'm
play
not
tomorrow. They'll play Wednesday. Thursday will be a
Yeah,
travel
you're
game,
right.
and
You're
Friday,
right. World Series will be
Saturday.
on Saturday. Yeah, Game
Yeah,
7 will be
so
on
it'll be
Saturday.
Friday, Saturday in LA. So, but it
Yeah.
sounds like we both think that it is going to go back to LA. But
Mhm.
now we've switched we're not aligned in the same outcome, but yeah, things have changed a lot in that
Yes.
a few game span then, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, speaking of next week, this weekend, you want to move on to this week 9 in the NFL. We'll talk about our bets, our locks of the week, and just our general preview of Week 9. Talk about the Chiefs Buccaneers matchup a little bit. Um,
Monday nights, Monday
what
night
is
game this week.
it is the Monday night game against the Buccaneers. I don't think either of us have this game as one of our locks, but would you want to talk a little bit about it? The Chiefs are favored by 9.5 points at home in Arrow under the lights at Arrowhead. They were favored by 9.5 against Oakland as well. I mean, Oakland against Las Vegas as well.
Right.
Um, but they won by 7. But it was kind of a backdoor cover at the end. It was, the game was really out of reach, but when when Las Vegas scored their uh, final touchdown. But do you think the Chiefs have a shot at blowing out the Buccaneers, or is this going to be a closer game and the Chiefs should be worried about this game? They've won 7 in a row, 13 in a row overall. Is this going to be number 14?
I'd like to think so. I don't like just being that absolute, I guess, about it, but I mean the Chiefs are playing well. Like you mentioned earlier, Tampa's without their two biggest wide receiver threats. So that seems to favor the Chiefs as well. And I don't are they one of their better running backs, I think, is out also. Isn't he like
Rashad White,
is
is
it
he
Wyatt? I think
he's
he
still
was
injured?
injured, maybe. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what his status is for this coming game, at least anyway. But yeah, the 9.5 point spread gives me a little bit of concern. I would think that's a little bit bigger spread than the Chiefs are used to covering, at least. So I think, yeah, if I'm betting the game, I'm picking the Chiefs to win, but I might actually take Tampa on the spread just because the Chiefs don't tend to run up the score. Do you think they'll manage to run it up or try to run it up this week?
I don't think the Chiefs ever run up the score against anybody, but I think they could do have a chance at scoring maybe 30 points because I think the Buccaneers defense hasn't been as good this year, and the Chiefs have had some success against the Tampa Bay defense over the last few years. So when
Mhm.
they play, usually I think these games have been in Tampa. I don't remember the last Chiefs game against the Buccaneers that's been in Kansas City. That's
Yeah.
been a little while. So yeah, I think it's Monday night. It'll be a big game. We'll have DeAndre Hopkins integrated a little bit more into the system. Mahomes will be wanting to shine. I think he's probably a little bit frustrated as to how his season has gone so far. I think maybe I don't know if this is a game that Taylor Swift's going to be at, but Kelsey has been doing a little bit better lately. So maybe this is,
Yeah.
continues the good vibes from the Chiefs offense and the defense to against a depleted wide receiver core. In the secondary, maybe right now is the weak link on the defense because of Jalen Watson's injury and now Leslie Johnson's injury. It was Joshua Williams who was the third cornerback uh, in that position. He actually had those two costly penalties uh, kind of in a row out of a
Yeah. On the kick return and then with a late out of bounds that
yes,
and then immediately like a holding call,
yes,
like on the first play, I think, of the
yeah, and
possession.
that led
Yeah.
to a an easy field goal for
And
the Raiders. So, but
but the Chiefs defense has been so stout, especially against the run. Like
mhm.
that after the interception that Mahomes threw, that the Raiders got to start a drive like inside the 10 and for some reason decided to run the ball 4 times and
Yeah,
the Chiefs just snuffed that out very, very nicely. It seems like they've done that like in every game, I think, this season. There's been like a fourth down stop inside the 10.
they've had good rushing defense. They
Yeah.
actually maybe bolstered their pass rush this past week when they signed Josh Uche from the uh, New England Patriots, traded for him a 6th round draft pick in 2026, which is actually not, it is only the year after next. It seems like it's very far away. I think 2026, like,
Right.
oh, that's well, who even thinks we'll live to 2026? But it's only 2 years away.
Yeah.
Um, so trading a 6th round pick for Josh Uche doesn't seem like very much. Uche had 11 and a half sacks just 2 years ago, so maybe he can come back and especially with Mike Dana being injured and Menahue being out still, maybe he can be that guy opposite Karlaftis and really help free up Chris Jones in the middle to wreak havoc on offensive lines.
Yeah, it's been amazing, like how easily it seems that Beach has been able to find competent replacements for players that have gone down, like even during the season. So it's you know, been a huge asset for the team to have Beach willing to go out and find somebody. And it seems like every time he goes out there, he finds somebody that's seems like a good fit too. That's Are you impressed with what he's been able to do?
Yeah, yeah, he's been great. And he's been good the last few years, being able to, even trade away Tyreek Hill and still have develop a really solid defense and at least a patchwork offense that's been good. And even just picking up midseason guys this year, like they picked up Juju Smith-Schuster right before the season started, P Ryan right before the season started, getting uh, Kareem Hunt during the season after Pacheco went down.
And,
Now
and
with
then
Patrick
he moved like
Hopkins.
right into the lead back role and
Yeah.
within just a few weeks of being on the roster. That's
Yeah, it's been impressive. And I think once, if again, this is it's tough. We really expect, a lot of great things from people coming off broken bones, but that's something that, an average person would not be able to recover from very quickly. But maybe a professional athlete with all the their physical gifts plus the rehab facilities of an NFL team, maybe
yes,
Pacheco
and
will
modern
come back.
medicine and yes,
Yeah, will come back at mostly the level that he was when he left, and that would be a tremendous 1-2 punch, I think, for the Chiefs. So, and with P Ryan coming into his own as the third down back, I, I really the backfield is looking much stronger, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is actually back too, and he actually hasn't been playing yet, so maybe he would come back in some role. Who knows?
have they made any announcement? Is he going to be on the active roster
I think he was a
this
healthy
week? Or
scratch. He was on the
yeah,
53. He was a healthy scratch last week. Or maybe not
some of
healthy.
that may just be getting him back up to speed,
Yeah, that could be.
possibly.
Yeah, I would guess maybe Carson Steele might be the odd man out if uh, Edwards-Helaire comes back, but I'm not sure how
Yeah,
that would.
Steele's only been used sort of sparingly after his early
Or maybe now
fumbling.
with Jody Fortson getting injured again, the Chiefs will just go with three tight ends
Yeah,
and bring an extra running back, and maybe you could have Carson Steele line up as tight end sometime, I think, or H back position, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Maybe they'll bring back some old school two running back sets and stuff like that. That would be
they did have a reverse wishbone formation in one of the plays against the Raiders.
yes. Maybe they'll start running a triple threat,
Yeah, triple option, or
triple
as,
option.
as I've wanted. And then they did this one play when Carson Wentz went in. They had the two quarterback system that I've been long touting with having two quarterbacks and directional snapping by the center to go. This would work ideally with you have two quarterbacks who are both dual threats, and you wouldn't necessarily know
Yes.
who the ball was going to first. And you could have, laterals in the backfield, different quarterbacks catching the ball, throwing the ball. I think if you have two Lamar Jackson types, um, that would be an ideal offense if you could find another running quarterback that maybe was not going to be quite as good as Lamar Jackson. It's going to be hard to find somebody that good, but you could find in the college game. There's lots of running quarterback. If you had like two Anthony Richardson types, I
Yeah.
think that could be done. Um, the Colts probably are going to be drafting high. They could probably find a dual threat quarterback fairly early in the draft and pair him with Anthony Richardson and have that two quarterback offense, which I think would be something that would be pretty dynamic moving forward. Uh,
Yeah.
but but that's for the distant future. We're concerned more about this week on the Warren Truck Power Hour. What you want to talk about our locks of the week of week 9?
Let's do it.
Um, what is you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I could go first because I think I have a pick on the Thursday night game, and it's something we've sort of alluded to earlier when you talked about the Houston New York Jets game. I think yeah, I'm maybe betting more against the team here as I am betting for the team. Houston is actually the underdog in this game in New York. I'm going to take Houston at +1.5 at the New York Jets. I'm not expecting much from the Jets. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been playing all that well. Their defense hasn't been playing all that well either. Houston's struggled a bit too, but they've managed to win games. But here they don't need to win by any number of points except just to win the game. So they can actually lose by a point and still cover the spread. So they're +1.5. Like, what do you
Yeah.
think of that pick so far?
I don't. I'm puzzled why the Jets are favored. So I'm thinking I
Yeah,
must be missing something. If I would have guessed Houston would have been favored by like 2.5 or 3 or something like
yeah,
that.
that's what I would have
And
guessed too.
I see why you would take the points and go against the Jets there. So that makes sense to me. But because it makes so much sense, I'm worried about it. It's
It's
one
Thursday night too. It's a little
it's
unpredictable in
crazy.
general.
Although you also have like a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers trying to recover in 3 days, 4 days from his
Yeah.
last week's game. Although now he has been drinking cayenne pepper and water, which is supposedly his super youthful energy tonic. Uh, I'm not sure if you, I think if anybody is swayed by patent medicine anymore, but I think maybe Aaron Rodgers would be. Uh, so, well, we'll see. Maybe so. If he has a big game, maybe we can say this cayenne pepper and water treatment is work
Yes.
for him. Um, Speaking of spicy cayenne pepper, I am making a bet on uh, Carolina, home of the Carolina Reaper, against New Orleans, home of the cayenne, uh, many cayenne peppers and many hot sauces in that area, Cajun spices. Um, Carolina is playing New Orleans, hosting New Orleans at home. New Orleans has lost, I think, their last 5 games, maybe 6 games in a row. They aren't doing so well right now. They had a good start. They won their first two, but
Five in a
they're
row. Oh, no, New Orleans, right? Is there
New
just
Orleans.
New Orleans lost 6 in a row.
They lost 6 in a row, 2-6. They're 2.
Carolina's lost 5 in a row.
Carolina's lost 5 in a row. So one of these teams has to win. I guess they could tie, but
Yes.
this reminds me a little bit of the Jets at New England, where the Jets were bad, New England was bad, but somehow the Jets were favored by 7 on the road. I don't
Yes.
like uh, the Saints on the road being favored by 7 over anybody. That's even though Carolina is bad. Bryce Young, I think, is starting as quarterback this week instead of Andy Dalton. I think I don't know if Carolina will win, but I think it'll be a close game within 7. So I'm gonna pick Carolina +7. I might actually pick Carolina outright to win. I was too chicken to pick New England outright to win last week, but maybe I will pick Carolina. Of course, now watch New Orleans score 45 points and 45-7 on the road or something. But um,
But then you
um,
get to talk about Clint Kubiak again then next
yes,
week, right?
Clint Kubiak in his he's refound his mojo, but I'm gonna
But
but I
not
think
yet. You have to save that.
go with Carolina and +7 at home against New Orleans.
And even in your scenario where the statement of, one of them has to win or they could tie. Even if they did tie, you'd be okay with that.
I would.
Like picking
I
on
would
the
still.
plus side. Let's see.
I would come out as the winner in that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're okay with the tie. They don't have to.
I'd be more than happy with a tie.
Yeah.
A 2-2 tie would be something I.
Yes. So let's see. My second pick for this week is going to be again betting against Tennessee as I did last week. This time we've got New England at +3 at Tennessee. I think New England coming off their win from last week against the Jets may be enough to carry them over a team that probably actually is worse than them anyway. So that's what I'm going to go with there. Yeah, New England plus that. No, I'm not sure that I really like this one as much as I when I first made the pick.
Well,
It seemed obvious to me, but then it's like I don't know why I think it's obvious.
it seems like we're going with the worst games out there, at least
We're
with some.
picking against teams. Sometimes you're betting on teams that are not so great too, but
Well,
you know
I
the other
couldn't.
team is worse.
I actually couldn't stay away from that game either. Tennessee, their
Hmm.
the over under is 37 and a half. I'm going with the under. I don't think either team will score many points. I think it'll be just Kobe Brissett probably as quarterback for New England. I don't know who's going to be Mason Rudolph or Will Levis for Tennessee. I don't think either team will score very many points. So I'm going to go with the under 37 and a half, Tennessee, New England. Um,
Well, looks like that is like by far the lowest over under number for any of the games this week. Looks like Thursday night games actually the next list 42 and a half. So that's
so it's an outlier.
very low under. And you're still going under.
Still going under. Yeah.
I don't see where there's a lot of points here. Do you think either team will get into the 20s, or do you think it will even?
I hope neither team gets into the 20s, and then that
eh,
would be well, it wouldn't
It's
guarantee it.
riskier, at least
If,
anyway. If one team gets into the 20s, it's
yeah.
riskier.
If neither team got into the 20s, the worst that could happen would be a 19 to 19 tie, which would be over. That would be the
Yes,
worst. That would be the worst.
that'd be the worst scenario for you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Um, most
and
scenarios.
me too, right? So because I'm taking oh no, New England's the as on is the plus three, so I'd be fine with that too, right?
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
Tennessee's favored in the game,
yeah,
so
New England's plus three. You're right. So
yeah.
you'd be fine with the 19.
So we
I would not
both
want a 19-19 tie. An
yeah,
18-18 tie would be fine, but
right.
six field goals from each side
Yes.
or nine
One team
saves.
has six. Yeah, I'm gonna say one team has six field goals. The other team has nine safeties.
Or just a combination of six field goals and nine safeties from both teams that would
Yeah.
lead to well, yeah, I think that would lead, it could lead to the same number of points depending on
Yes.
it could lead to a tie game, I mean, depending on how
Right.
they were arranged.
Each team has three safeties.
Well, if one team had two field goals, 6 points, and six safeties, that would be 18. And the other one would need four field goals for 12 and three safeties for 18. That would work.
Right. So
I don't I
yeah.
think that's unlikely to happen, but um,
But if you were to actually pick that on a betting line somewhere, you would win a lot of money, like
I would win, you know, the world economy basically, I think, out of if that was something that
because I was gonna say minimally they would just hand the sports book over to you. It's like
yes,
this
yeah,
is yours now.
I would I would be yeah, I would be Elon Musk levels of wealthy probably.
Here is a $10 bill for a nine safety game ending in a tie. Yes, I think you should do that.
Okay.
It's
No,
not a
I'm
good bet, Mike. Don't do that.
no. So speaking of not good bets, what's your third lock of the week, Dr. Scaff?
Final pick of the week. Now I'm actually going to bet on a team that's played well recently, scored a lot of points. I think it's a team with an injured quarterback. Not sure what his status will be going into this game, but it's Detroit is favored by 3.5 points in Green Bay right now. So I'm going to land on the Detroit side on this one. My third and final pick this week.
Detroit over Green Bay. I think that's possible. Yeah, especially if Jordan Love doesn't end up playing because there's a bye for the Packers the week after, so maybe you want to give him 2 weeks break just to rest his A-League
Mhm.
groin for the home stretch. And although maybe if the Packers you might want to play him, just knowing that the bye next week in case he's tired or aggravates it or something. So, but I think with that uncertainty, with maybe not 100% not 100% Jordan Love, you might I think that could be a good pick, especially the way Detroit's been playing. They've been rolling over teams.
Yeah.
Um, my final pick of the week is another road team in another intra-divisional matchup, and that is the LA Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams are 1.5 point underdogs at Seattle. The Rams have been playing well as of late. I think mainly because they have the return of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp to the lineup. Yeah, Kyron Williams has been doing well in the backfield. And Matthew Stafford has still been fairly healthy this year. So I think the offense for the Rams is pretty good. I think their defense is adequate, even though Aaron Donald has departed. I don't Seattle, I think, had a hot start, but I don't think Seattle's a very good team. So I think the Rams are a better team than Seattle. It's at Seattle. So I think the Rams will win. Again, simply because I think the Rams will win. I think the plus 1.5 is what I should do. I guess they could also lose by 1 point, and I would win that bet. But I actually think they'll win outright. So it's essentially a Rams money line pick is what I'm making it.
Are there any other games that you're excited about coming up this weekend?
Um, the Sunday night game's not one of the best ones. It's Indianapolis, Minnesota. It's in Indianapolis, so it's Indianapolis in Minneapolis. So it's the battle of the state polises. I don't think that's a great game. Miami Buffalo has a chance to be a good game, I think. If Tua is back. There's a lot of ones. I think there's Denver Baltimore maybe could be a better game than what it's Baltimore's favored by 9.5, which seems like a lot, especially coming off a loss to Cleveland. I think Denver's a better team than Cleveland, but
Well,
I think
Denver's playing pretty well actually right now too.
yeah, yeah. So um yeah, this I think the Detroit Green Bay is probably the best game uh if we have a healthy Jordan Love.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of games that are kind of ugly on this schedule on this week.
Yeah.
Chicago, Arizona might be actually interesting as well. Um,
It could be, yeah.
where we have Caleb Williams against um, uh, uh, playing in the desert against the Cardinals. Um,
So the
that
Buffalo Miami has been somewhat challenging for Buffalo. It's not been a walkover in games that they've played, matchups they've had in the last several years too, right?
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I think the Caleb Williams Kyler Murray matchup is interesting because probably it's two former Oklahoma quarterbacks who became number one picks. They're kind of the same,
Yeah.
uh, both uh, kind of the same guy, both coached by Lincoln Riley. Um, so maybe that'll be an interesting game too. But yeah, I think that one and the Buffalo Miami, both of those could be turn out to be interesting. Because yeah, like you said, Buffalo has kind of struggled against Miami in recent years. So yeah, but it seems like this week though, there's a lot of kind of not so glamorous matchups. Like we have the Chargers, Cleveland, or Jacksonville, Philadelphia. We have a lot of one-sided ones, or uh,
Yeah.
maybe Dallas, Atlanta. This is the last game that if Dallas loses, I think they're basically out of it. But if Dallas beats Atlanta, maybe they could still say, "Oh, we're kind of in the mix somewhere." But
Yeah.
that's, I think, wishful thinking for Dallas. But who knows? Um, yeah,
And it
but it seems
doesn't,
like we bet on the worst of the matchups, but I think there are still other matchups that aren't that much better out there. This isn't, I don't think the marquee week of football. The two teams that have buys are Pittsburgh and San Francisco. That would be an interesting game. If
yeah.
they played each other, that would be a game that I'd watch.
Well, and
Uh,
they're teams that tend to show up in our bets of the week, our locks of the week.
yeah,
Frequently, those two teams are,
Mhm.
somewhere in there.
Yeah,
So that makes our job a little harder this week. Is that some teams we sort of rely on typically are not even available to us since it's on the bye. But yeah, if they were playing each other, I think that would be a nice matchup. It's too bad
yeah,
that they're not.
yeah. I think yeah, this is one week where I think there's a lack of major just the way the schedule has turned out this year, the way the teams have turned out. Some of the games that maybe looked really good going in to the season, maybe you thought that yeah, Miami Buffalo would be a really big matchup, or you would think um,
Houston, the Jets, I think
Jacksonville,
people.
Philadelphia would have been good,
Uh,
or something like that. But at least one of those teams has been bad. So I
Houston,
don't.
the Jets, I think were expected to be like two teams that could be like contending for
Yeah, yeah,
an AFC, title perhaps.
yeah.
But
I don't understand why Indianapolis, Minnesota was picked as the Sunday night game, either before the season started or during the season. Like that is a not a that's not a matchup anybody wants to see, I don't think. But
yeah,
those cities, but um, I
well,
guess
especially with Minnesota looking to be like a defensive centric team in a kind of a rebuild year on offense.
mhm.
So
They've been
yeah, why
a
they'd
pleasant
be why they'd be
surprise,
yeah,
yeah, but maybe it might be an okay game with Flacco playing. That's an interesting storyline. And Flacco against Darnold, not neither of those teams wanted those guys as their quarterbacks, but maybe they are the best quarterbacks for those teams right now.
yeah, probably.
Just as nobody probably wanted us to host the One Track Power, but we are the best One Track Power hosts there are right now. Uh, should we wrap up this week?
Sure. On that note,
On that note, yeah,
yeah,
the podcast nobody wanted, but the podcast everyone deserves
yes, there
is
you go.
the One Track Power Hour. Um, Yeah, so we have the this week's slate of NFL matchups to look forward to. Coming back next week, we will talk about this past week and the World Series, which will be over. Hopefully, for my sake, it will be a miraculous Yankees comeback, but more than likely, it will be a Dodgers coronation, either in New York or back in Los Angeles if it reaches Game 6. I think if it does reach Game 7, though, it's one of those things where I think maybe it is going to be the Yankees would win just because of the momentum. Uh,
Yeah,
how would a team
they
that's
actually
won?
have a starting pitcher for a game set, right? Or
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah,
the Dodgers do. So
yeah. Walker Bueller maybe would be again, but I would say he's been good before, or Clayton Kershaw, but like neither of them are what they used to be as pitchers. They're not in their primes any longer.
I don't think either one of them are actually healthy though either. So
Well, Bueller pitched pretty well in the
game
uh,
three,
Game 3. I guess would Kershaw come back or be possibly a
I don't know if he's on the active roster for the World Series even because he'd been having some problem. Like he went down, I think in August or so. I don't know. I don't think he's thrown since then. I could be wrong though. I don't pay that close attention to the Dodgers.
no, he's not available. So I was
These are like two of my least favorite teams just because of the style of how they more or less just go out and buy rosters from other, and they see who the MVPs are that are available and then they buy them. I
yes.
don't care for that.
I think the Dodgers have become more the Yankees even than the Yankees have been. So the Dodgers are
Yes.
at least Aaron Judge was developed by the Yankees and
Yeah.
uh, I don't know how many Dodgers players were developed by the Dodgers, but
But you have to remember too, like the Stanton pickup was made when Derek Jeter was in my
yes.
right as their GM. So it's like that was a bit shady. I thought anyway at the time, and now it's like
Uh-huh.
paying off.
Yeah.
No,
I guess Volpe is he was a Yankee developed guy. He's the new
yeah,
Jeter in some ways. Uh, if the Yankees manage to win the World Series, he will become a folk hero with his grand slam probably and become a beloved figure in New York, but probably disliked everywhere else, just like Jeter sort of was.
Yes. Or no one
Um,
else will even remember who he is, but the Yankees will talk about him constantly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, just like the viewers, most people will never know who the Warner Trek Power Hour hosts are, but the Warner Trek Power Hour viewers and listeners will talk about us constantly as the ones who
All the
brighten
time.
their day uh, as radio podcast or video podcast hosts. And yeah, like we mentioned before, we'll be back next week talking about the World Series, talking about week 9 of the NFL and any other topics that strike our fancy. And we will come back with our patented hard-hitting and hair-splitting analysis. And so anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Scap, before we sign off?
Go Chiefs, I guess.
Go Chiefs, yeah.
Sure.
I think against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so we want an easy Chiefs victory. I think all, but we've been treated to fairly non cardiac stressing victories the last couple of weeks from the Chiefs. They've
Man,
actually won fairly comfortably the last 3 games. You could say that the Raiders game was only a 7 point victory, but it was a bigger lead in the fourth quarter. It was 2 touchdowns, going in. Um,
it didn't come down to a toe out of bounds in
no,
the
it
end
wasn't.
zone like in week
Or a
one or
penalty that was called at the right time or the wrong time, something like that. Yeah, it was a relatively comfortable win. So we'll look for another one of those, and we'll be back and talk all about it when the week is new. So as always, I am Dr. Michael Lerman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our podcast, which is available on many different podcast delivery platforms or our YouTube channel. And as always, we wish you well on your bets if you're making bets this coming week, as long as your interests do not conflict with ours. Um, and keeping that in mind, we wish you a good day.